Fox senior political analyst Brit Hume knew her well for many years, 38 years, and he joins us tonight. Brit, what did you make of Barbara Bush?
She was a woman of enormous character. She adored her husband, and I always had the sense in seeing them together that she never could quite get enough of him, that he was such a gregarious man, he had so many friends, and people liked him, and he liked people, and that there was never quite enough of him to go around as far as she was concerned. And of course she was, as was mentioned in Bill Clinton's statement we just saw on the air a few minutes ago, she was a fierce person. And this was not a mellow first lady. This was a woman of strong views, and yet she managed, Tucker, for all that, not to really ever be a controversial first lady. She just wasn't. And I think it was because people saw her character and admired her, and she was indeed admirable.
Boy, looking at the tape of her on the screen, you really note how much America has changed and how she was really representative of a country that and values that aren't as common as they once were, maybe that have almost disappeared. She was, as you said, famous without being controversial. How did she pull that off?
Well, I think it was obvious, I think, to people who saw her, heard her speak, saw her in action, and watched the way she behaved, that she behaved with a certain dignity and grace befitting the wife of a prominent figure, then a wife, obviously, of a president, later as the mother of a president. So she had that quality that was, which I think people respected, and she also had about her an obvious goodwill.
Yes.
And I think that shone through in a way that was unmistakable, so that people saw those things in her, and she really never struck a false note. I mean, there was a moment when during the 1988 campaign when Geraldine Ferraro had, this was, I guess it was during the 1984 campaign,
yes,
when her husband had debated Geraldine Ferraro during the Reagan re-election campaign against Walter Mondale. And she said that Geraldine Ferraro came across as somebody who could be described as rhyming with rich. And that was immediately taken to mean bitch, but she later clarified that she meant only witch. But if people thought that was improper, they quickly forgave her for that, and she went on to become exceedingly popular and well-liked. I'll say this. You never had the feeling about her that if you had your shirt untucked or you're a little out of order, that she wasn't going to notice. And I remember being at a state dinner. You know, the custom is always, if you're a member of the White House press corps, that there's a certain number of tickets that the press office can give out, and I got to go to one at one time. And my dinner partner was the retired tennis pro then, Chris Evert, who was a friend of the Bush family, and she had on this very short gold evening dress. And the word reached me pretty quickly that Mrs. Bush was not amused by that dress. Me, I thought it was wonderful.
Well, if you talk, I mean, her son, the president, would go on at some length about what a ferocious figure she was, and she must have been. You knew her, of course, in Washington, covering the family. You knew the family in Florida and also in Maine. I mean, you spent a lot of time around a bunch of different parts of the Bush family. She was at the center of it, kind of a remarkable a remarkable family. What was her role in the family?
Well, she was the. I mean, obviously, she's the matriarch, right? Because she's the mother, the grandmother, the wife of the president, and she was strong, not mellow in the way that her husband was. And yeah, so if those boys and their sister growing up, stepped out of line, it was pretty clear who they were more afraid of. She was starchy, dignified, old line, New England, aristocratic, all those things, and people loved her. And you could say in this political atmosphere where everybody's supposed to be so egalitarian that they loved her in spite of that, but I rather happen to think they loved her because of it.
That's exactly right. You wonder if there's space for someone like that in modern American life.
Well, I think so. If you behave with grace and dignity and decorum and obvious goodwill, and that people are going to respect that. And she had that, and she also had that countenance, with the white hair, which she had from quite a young age. That's why I guess it was her husband who dubbed her the Silver Fox, and so she was known to many people by that sobriquet. And she kind of lived that part. she was quite a figure, and she's a real loss to the country. And I can only think about how her husband must be feeling tonight, because they were so close, Tucker. I mean, I didn't see a lot of them in recent years, but when I did, when they were together, there was one thing that was always going on. They were holding hands. Yes. She was, you know, she had portable oxygen the last several times I saw her, and she was getting around as best she could. And of course, he's quite ill, and is believed by the family to be in the latter stages of his life. I don't know that it was anticipated by many people outside the family that she would predecease him, as has now happened. But I can only imagine the sense of loss he must feel tonight. And I think, you know, to all of us, our hearts go out to him and to the rest of the Bush family tonight. A great lady has died.
We're looking at pictures outside the Bush family home in Texas. We just saw a video a minute ago of Barbara Bush with her then famous Springer Spaniel, Millie, a reminder that she was a great lover of Springer Spaniels, one of the best things about her, or anyone, I would say. But she must have also, as you pointed out, she was with her husband all the time. She traveled with him. She was the head not just of a family, but of a very political family. What was her political sensibility? I mean, she must have had a sense of it, being around it, her whole life.
Oh, I don't think there's much doubt about that. And of course, she had a pet issue, literacy, which she had a number of issues and causes that she supported. Literacy was the one that was the most conspicuous. And in fact, I went over to help to be the MC at the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor a year ago last December, and that was at the Bush Library, the Bush 41 Library in College Station, Texas. And the first night we were there, she was not there because she was away at a literacy event with her son Neil. So that was a cause that she never lost sight of, and was a part of her all. By the time, by the way, that I saw her there, the Springer Spaniels were out of the picture, and she had a couple of these little dogs that went with her everywhere she'd go. And you could always tell, apparently, when she was going to come into a room, because she would be preceded by the dogs. And they kept an eye on things. She liked that.
Our dogs get smaller as we age. I've noticed that. I'm not looking forward to it. Britt, that was a wonderful summation of an amazing life, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.